Welcome everybody to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of PunchdownCritics.com, and this is kind of a special episode. I haven't done a full episode in a while because Chris has not been around, but he is here, and we got something that we really need to talk about. And the only
Big
person
news
that
for me.
I could talk about, I'm only going to spill all the tea on what's going on with you, I really could only talk about this thing with you because I know you're like the ultimate Bond fan. I'm more of a casual fan. My dad was the James Bond fan in the
You see
family.
my View to a Kill poster right there, my
Exactly.
Octopussy poster right there.
Exactly. Today came down some really big news. The longtime Bond producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson have taken a step back. They will remain as co-owners of the franchise, but they have taken a step back creatively, handing the reins over to Amazon MGM. So now full creative control goes to Amazon Studios, Amazon MGM Studios, and this could be huge. The Broccolis have basically had control of this for like 50, 60 years. Barbara, I think she took over in like the 90s or something like that, and Wilson has been around for years. He used to be a co-writer as well on some of the films. I think in the beginning with 1981,
Yeah. So
For Your Eyes Only.
so Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, they were independent producers and they bought the property from Ian Fleming basically and got the rights to it. And then Saltzman dropped out and Albert R. Broccoli took create complete control. And he brought on his stepson, Michael G. Wilson, to co-manage it with him. And then over time, they brought in Albert R. Broccoli's daughter, Barbara, who really stepped up once Albert R. Broccoli died.
She's
And
really been the driving creative force for the last
since the end
25,
of the
30 years.
Pierce Brosnan era and throughout the entire Daniel Craig era, she's been in effect the boss of the James Bond
Almost
franchise.
any news that you would be getting directly uh from the estate or anything was coming from her.
Yeah,
Almost
and
anything was
she
coming from
was like the ultimate guardian of the franchise.
her.
They've tried to do so many stupid things with James Bond over the years, and she always fought back against it. If it wasn't for her, would have gotten things like Jane Bond,
Right.
would have the Q Chronicles, the Money Punny Adventures, and now honestly,
You'd had a James Bond from like Brooklyn, New York or something. You'd had something dumb.
yeah, 100%. They would have the studios with the trends. They wanted to make Bond
They want to
American.
build us about Bond's cinematic universe. I
Well,
mean,
that's what's going to
it's
happen now, though.
it's going to
That's
happen now, right?
100% going to happen now, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna totally suck. And I'm a huge Bond fan too, but the key to that character is the scarcity. The reason it's lasted so long is that you get a Bond movie every 3 years. People don't get sick of Bond. Every time Bond comes out, it's an event. Now you're going to be getting Bond movies every year or more, God forbid, and they're going to be streaming and they're going to be boring and they're going to suck.
Yeah, this was a thing that people began to be worried about a few years ago before Amazon bought MGM, and it looked like, we were during the pandemic and they were looking to sell No Time to Die to Amazon. People
Mhm.
began to have those fears of what would happen if something like this were to go to a place like Amazon. It's taken a few years,
Yeah.
but we're here now. And I'm worried that they're going to do like what Disney did with Star Wars, which is
100, that's what they're
put
going to
out
do. It's
content, content, content. Just TV show spin-offs. They'll probably dredge up the Jinx spin-off movie that they didn't do
it's
20 years
yeah.
ago.
They're gonna be putting out content that nobody cares about, which is exactly what's happening with Star Wars. That has very little resemblance to anything in the James Bond universe. It's gonna be, I mean, the thing about Bond is he's been in the cross
We're gonna get the Money Penny like mini series where you
A
get like
hundred percent we will. 100% we will. And it's not going to be Money Punny in the way that we recognize her from the series at all. It's going to
we're gonna
be,
find out she had like a secret life as like
of course. It's so easy to predict. And I mean, Bond, the days of Bond womanizing are over. I mean, that's never going to happen again.
That's kind of been over for a long time anyway. That's actually one of the developments. That's actually one of the things that I think represents one of the good things about Bond is that they've always been able to kind of evolve it a little bit with
Sure.
little changes. And a womanizing Bond that thing's been phased out for a long time.
To a degree.
Daniel
To a
Craig's
degree.
Bond isn't really a womanizing Bond.
They brought it in every now and then, when it suited the character. And I mean, I think the thing about
I think
Bond,
there's a big difference between a guy who's good at getting women and a womanizer. Those are
well,
totally different
yeah,
things. And
I
I don't think Craig's character was like that.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but he was a womanizer in Casino Royale because he uses Solange and then discards her. And the same thing happens in Spectre with Berenice Merlotte's character. I think that that was actually part of what they did with the Craig movies. And I think that's one of the reasons the Craig movies work because that's in the character. The character will use whomever he needs to accomplish his mission. The thing that I have with Bond though is they're going to
That's a different thing than a womanizer. But
sure.
okay,
Yeah, I agree. They're gonna just change it into something I think that's not even gonna be recognizably Bond.
that
I
I
think
agree with.
I do think they're gonna cast somebody who fans are gonna be happy about as Bond. I think they're gonna cast a very safe choice as Bond. Too safe, probably. They're gonna cast somebody like Henry Cavill or Sam Heughan or someone along those lines. Right. And it's going to be a very predictable, safe Bond. But what they're going to do is they're going to surround him by this extended cast of characters, right? There's going to be the tough ass kicking female agent who's going to be with him. There's going to be probably a diverse guy who's like his best bud, you know, not like a Felix Leiter, but somebody else, and another character who are both going to get their own spin-off movies and spin-off shows, who in turn are going to lead to more spin-offs and more spin-offs. And I think it's going to be one of those things where we're going to watch the first Bond movie that they make or whatever, and we're like, oh, that was pretty good. But slowly over time, it's going to be so diluted that after a certain point, we're going to be like, who even really cares about Bond anymore? Because there's going to be too much of it. And it's a thin character. It is a thin character.
Amazon's going to try and Clancy verse this thing.
Oh,
So,
I mean, and who gives a fuck about Jack Ryan at this point? Like, it's really like, you know,
I mean, they just started production on the John Krasinski movie that's coming out. I was like, I don't care.
yeah, nobody cares. I never really watched. I was a huge fan of the Jack Ryan movies. I was in one of the Jack Ryan movies, and I
know,
even watched
yeah,
the
you
show.
told me. Yeah.
You know, and it's just, I mean, it's that's what they're going to do to Bond, though. I mean, this is, I get it because from a business standpoint, it's smart because James Bond is one of the most recognizable pieces of IP in the world and translates very well internationally. So you
And it's coming off its best run of movies ever.
yeah, and you can do a lot with it. Should you do a lot with it? That's the thing. You know, it's a penny wise, a pound foolish. You know, it's one of those things like it'll be successful. It'll make them a ton of money. But
It's you breaking out the old man sayings.
look, what worries me, there was a story that came down a while ago where Barbara Broccoli was in a meeting with Amazon and apparently it ended badly. And I think that's one of the reasons she's out. I think she fucking said some shit that she probably shouldn't have. They basically were throwing all these stupid ideas at her, basically. And you know, the millennials that were working there were like, "Well, I don't think James Bond is a hero, and we should present him that way." And then she told the guy he was an idiot, you know, because James Bond, sorry, is a hero, right? And it's like, oh, you know, and it's you know, I think if you dilute it so much and you make Bond so ineffective in his own series, you know, like they're going to have Bond working as part of a team. He's not going to be on his own anymore. He's not going to be a lone wolf. He's going to be, you know, the adventure is going to be really split up between him and a lot of different people. He's not going to be basically the hero that we all know. And I mean, to a certain extent, I get it because I don't think the James Bond series as it is could sustain like a movie every year or a limited series or a series because it's deliberately vague and deliberately thin. But that's why Bond is one of those things you go back to it every couple of years. And like you said, you can change with the times. You know, every Bond movie has had a different flavor, different Bond eras. You know, the Brosnan movies were very influenced by the Jack Ryan films. The Daniel Craig movies were very influenced by the Bourne films, you know, and I would imagine that probably in the next ones they'll probably be quite influenced by the John Wick movies. They've always done that. You know, Octopussy was like an Indiana Jones movie. They've always done that. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's just you know, with Barbara Broccoli, her and Wilson would make decisions that weren't necessarily good decisions. But the thing is, they always were able to kind of recenter themselves. They've made bad Bond movies, but they were always
Yeah,
kind of able
franchise
to
has ups and downs.
sure, and they were always able to acknowledge when they went too far, when they made a mistake, and when the character needed to be reimagined. You know, a good example is Die Another Day, because Die Another Day was the most successful James Bond ever up to that point.
Mhm.
By all accounts, a global blockbuster, and the kind of thing that if any other studio had done it, they would have just churned out more and more and more because it was a massive success. But they realized that it actually wasn't a good movie, and that they had to basically you know scrap what they were doing and start over again, which is what they did, and they did so brilliantly.
I always felt like this is my you know, because like I said, Bond wasn't always my favorite thing, but I always respected the fact that I felt like I knew the people behind the scenes of it, and I always felt like they always had its best interest in mind, no
Yes,
matter what. Like even when
100%.
things weren't great, like they wouldn't be long before they would figure it out.
That's exactly right.
That's one of the things I always liked about Bond and always respected about the Bond franchise. And today, when I woke up and saw the news, I was like, I no longer feel that way all of a sudden because I don't think that Amazon really gives a shit about the Bond thing. It's just another brand for them, and
They'll
it's
chase trends. They'll do if you know the appetite of somebody, if the public attitudes change and people say, "Hey, you should do a Jane Bond movie." They'll go and do a Jane Bond movie because they'll be like, "Hey, maybe it'll be a hit, maybe not. Who cares?" You
yeah.
know, and it's like they're gonna throw all these kind of dumb ideas at the wall and see which one of them sticks, and it's gonna be one of those things
Bond
where
is no longer going to feel like this precious thing anymore.
no,
So
we're
that's
gonna look back and we're gonna be like, "Well, this series really did end when he died and No Time to Die." Like that was it. That was the end of James Bond.
it might be. It might be the thing that made me that made go Barbara Broccoli kind of go. You know what? I think that was pretty good end of a run.
I think that's exactly what happened. I think she went into a bunch of meetings with the Amazon people, realized that she was, you know, going up against,
They're fighting an uphill battle. Like it's
yeah,
one of
and
those
they're
things.
older. They have other things
Eventually,
they want to do.
yeah, eventually Amazon MGM is going to get its way. It might be years from now, but eventually they will. You
Yeah.
know, you're fighting this battle like for what? You can still retain ownership, but you can pull yourself out of that the creative headaches of fighting these kinds of battles, fighting against streaming. You don't want to do streaming, fighting against ridiculous wish lists that you see every day on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever. Like cast cast this person as they probably get sick and tired of hearing about Idris Elba. They're probably getting tired of all of it. Just all of it
They'll cast
about Bond.
somebody as Bond. I'm almost positive that the person they're going to cast as Bond though is going to be a crazy safe choice. Like they're going to cast somebody. It's not going to be somebody as young as we thought that the Eon people were going to do. It's going to be somebody like it'll be somebody like Henry Cavill because it'll be one of those things where we're going to put a movie into production now and it'll be out in a year, and it'll be really fast and they'll be able to churn them out like that, whereas with the Broccolis, a Bond movie would have taken 3, 4 years to make because they want to get the script right and they want to get the right director and they want to make sure everything's good. Amazon, my worry is that they're going to hire somebody like Cavill that will get people excited, and then they're going to hire some B-list director who's worked on streaming shows for them to direct it completely uninspired. It's going to have a shitty screenplay and it's just going to be tossed. And it's gonna, because they're going to be like, well, it's Bond. People are going to watch it regardless. And it's going to be like every other streaming movie where it's designed to be watched on a second screen while other things are on in the
They're gonna
background.
get whoever has directed episodes of Reacher, and they're gonna
It's gonna be like I was just reading something. You wanted something scary. Get ready for the James Bond Citadel crossover. Nobody wants.
I said there was gonna be a James Bond Reacher crossover.
I
And
could
I
see
was
them.
like, and I said, I know it sounds ludicrous, but
I could see it
it's a
happening. I could see it
possibility.
happening. Yeah.
It's a possibility today when it wasn't yesterday. So it
I
can't
mean,
be
look what they're
bad.
doing with Reacher, and look what they're doing with Terminal List, and look what they're doing with Citadel, right? Where it's like all of those shows are all getting spin-offs, multiple spin-offs. Same thing with The Boys. It's
Now, if
gonna
you
be
wanted to
like
give
that.
me now, if you wanted to give me a James Bond Hannah crossover, I might be okay.
It's gonna, and man, I'm telling you, Bond should just be left on his own. The Money Punny Chronicles, 100% is gonna happen. The Q
Yes,
Chronicles, 100% gonna happen.
absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely,
matter of
absolutely,
time.
absolutely. 1000% that will happen.
Or you're gonna get very, it's gonna be like The Critic. You're gonna get really politically correct James Bond movies. Doctor No means no.
I think the biggest fear is that it's just going to become very generic.
Oh, and I mean, I'm
It's
looking at
just
all these
it's just going
ideas
to
now
become
that are
very
on.
generic because I 1000% also think we're going to get some kind of a Bond series, whether it
Oh,
follows something set in the Bond universe. Like it might not even have Bond in it, but
yeah.
it might be set in the Bond universe.
Or they'll cast somebody cool as Bond who is not Bond at all, and it'll be like, why did they cast that person? Somebody random. Somebody suggested Michael B. Jordan as James Bond. It's like, well, he's American. Not only that he's black. The black thing is fine. I think you could cast Idris Elba as Bond. I think he would
Yeah,
actually be a good Bond. Michael B.
yes,
Jordan, though, young guy who's American, I don't think is a great choice, right? It's the same thing. I wouldn't cast Matt Damon as James Bond either. Like it's
I
this.
would cast the black guy from Gangs of London, and he was also in The Forge.
Yeah.
I can't
It'll be
remember.
interesting to see who they cast. I mean, I was also Was I mean, I
The
think he
Gorge, excuse me. He's in the Gorge, not the
needs
Forge.
to
The
be
Gorge.
British. Just needs
Huh?
to be,
Yeah,
but
he needs to be British. He needs to be British.
but but I mean,
We'll
but
be introduced
all
to
these
his
ideas,
American. We'll be introduced to his American counterpart. You
double
know,
up 7.5.
yeah,
They're
something.
they're all these. I don't think that's going to happen though. I think they're going to cast somebody very, middle of the road as Bond. They're going to cast somebody as Bond. You know what I would be willing to imagine? I bet you Amazon and MGM have actually already chosen who the next James Bond is going to be, and that they've been trying to get the Broccoli's on board, and they've said no. And then finally they were like, "Well, we're fucking making this movie. Here's, $1 billion. Go away." That you could put into like charity and your own pursuits. And okay, like I'm confident that they've already chosen the next James Bond. That they've
Yeah,
got somebody.
I
That they've
think
got.
we'll see them. I think we might. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them run a few names up the flagpole pretty soon and like poll test a couple of these
They
things.
already did. Jeff Bezos already put it on Twitter asking people who he thinks should be James Bond, and it's all the usual suspects. It's
Jeff Bezos. I didn't even think about Well, I did think about Jeff Bezos because I posted something earlier, but it's like, is this the first time Bond has ever been owned by a Bond villain? 'Cause that's the way I think of Jeff Bezos right
we're gonna get Elon Musk playing James Bond. God forbid. I think I might just commit suicide if that happens.
now.
Life wasn't worth living anymore. It's
It
but
really is.
all
It
these
barely is
ideas,
over here. It barely is over here.
all these ideas out there though that are like, oh, you should do an old man Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan. But does the world really
They
need?
want to do a Logan version of Bond.
Yeah, with Pierce Brosnan where he dies again, and it's just
Yeah, no
I
thank
love
you.
Pierce, but his acting was never that good as James Bond. Like I loved him in The Matador, but for Bond, he would always do these kind of cliche things. Like there would always be Brosnan hurt acting where he's like, "Ah," and he's really bad at pretending to be hurt. And then the Irish accent would always come out when he got mad. Hey, start talking like this. I have to stop him. I'm the only chance anyone's got.
I don't want to see old man Bond. I don't want to see James Bond Jr. again. We already saw that.
James Bond
We
Jr.
already saw that.
Learned the game from his uncle
I'd like
James.
to know. I'd like to have been in the room during the conversations for that. For that.
I would have liked to have been in the room, the one that like fucking killed Barbara Broccoli. Like, I bet she called somebody. I bet shit happened at that meeting that would have gotten her canceled so many fucking times if it ever came out. She was probably hot takes. She was probably bang, 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 bang. And then they were all like, oh shit.
Oh man. Anyway, so when do you think? So before we go, when do you think we're going to get an announcement on the new Bond?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be CinemaCon this year. Amazon MGM is doing a huge presentation at CinemaCon. Uh, they're going to make a big show about how they're going to keep the James Bond movies theatrical for now, and they're going
So
to and they're
at
going
the
to
end
bring
of,
and they're going to bring out the new Bond there.
at the end of CinemaCon, when Jeff Bezos comes up on stage, he's like, "And before we go, we got one last announcement. I want to introduce you to your new 007. Here he is, Jared Leto." And then and then I get the message over my phone. Hey, did you know Bumper had an aneurysm over at
No,
CinemaCon?
no, you know what the craziest piece of Bond casting would be? This would be insane. Jeff Bezos comes out and he goes, "I'm going to introduce you to the new James Bond, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Daniel Craig." Could you imagine what the reaction is going to be? He just dropped out of
Yeah,
Sergeant Rock.
yeah.
Could you imagine what the reaction would be? They might have offered him like an insane amount of
They'd
money
have
and said,
to.
"We only
They'd
need
have
you
to.
for a couple weeks."
They'd have to. He'd have to get back into Bond shape too. He was looking awfully frail and queer. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. For a second, I thought she was like he was looking awfully frail and queer, and I was like, what? Like, this is taking a turn. It's like, oh, okay, no, the movie queer. Yeah, yeah. I was like, geez. No, I mean, no, it was, yeah, I mean, could you imagine what the reaction would be though? It'd be like Robert Downey Jr. when they announced him as Doctor Doom,
I
almost.
imagine it would be a lot like um, announcing Hugh Jackman's coming back as Wolverine. People would be
Yeah.
excited. People
Oh,
would be
people
excited.
would be crazy excited.
Yeah,
I
people
mean,
would be crazy excited.
should it happen? No.
No, no,
Could
it
it
shouldn't.
happen? Yes.
No, it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, it could happen though. Could you imagine? Could you
Yeah.
imagine the
Could I
reaction?
imagine it? Yes. Do I think it'll happen? No.
I feel like I'm gonna be there with Lance, and Lance is gonna be videoing the whole thing. I bet he's gonna turn to me and he's gonna be like, Chris, what do you think? I'm gonna be like, flat out of my nose and my ear.
Funny. That Leto announcement is coming.
Or who's coming as James Bond, like an AI Sean Connery hologram comes out.
Oh my God.
My
Um,
theory, honestly, my theory is Henry Cavill. I'm
yeah,
pretty.
that's so boring. And as
I
much as
know
I love Henry Cavill, that's such a boring choice.
it's just a very very safe choice that would make
Yeah,
a lot of Bond fans happy, but could it happen? Yes. Should it happen? No. It's one of those other guys like, Clive Owen, I think would have been a great Bond too, but almost too obvious, right? So, I
yeah,
kind of
that
think they
was
need to
too.
go. I don't want anybody too obvious. I don't want Aaron Taylor Johnson to play Bond either. I mean, the only
Yeah,
one out.
I feel like I'd like to see because look, most people barely knew Daniel Craig when he got that movie, when he got Casino Royale, when he got that first one. A lot of people didn't really know him. I only know him from Layer Cake,
I,
and I was like, he was great in Layer Cake, and he seems like, and I remember watching it then, being like, he'd be a great Bond.
there's a couple of people that I think would be good. I think Josh O'Connor would be a really interesting choice. He doesn't look the role, but I think that he could be an interesting choice.
I could see
Yeah.
that.
The other one who I could totally see would be Harris Dickinson, young guy, but he's got the coldness behind the eyes, and I think
Yeah.
that he would nail. I think he'd nail the part.
Like
He'd be very Daniel Craig.
yeah, I like Harris Dickinson. I also feel like his features are too bland for me. Like there's something very, I don't know.
I
Like
know,
he
but he's got
doesn't
that
his face
coldness
doesn't
behind the eyes,
stand
though.
his face
Yeah,
doesn't stand out when I think of like when I
yeah,
look at these like the Bonds behind me.
yeah.
Like there's like a lot of personality in those faces, like
Sure.
all of them. I don't get that from Harris Dickinson. I just don't.
You know, it'd be great if they brought out the new James Bond, Timothy Dalton. I'd be thrilled.
The guy who started in 1917 would be great, and whose name I don't remember.
George
Um,
McKay, yeah, he'd be a really
George
interesting
McKay would
Bond.
be
Yeah,
a
he
great
would.
one.
I would be 100% behind that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what they need, though. They need a young guy who's interesting, who's above all things a really good actor.
yep. Got some physicality to him, I
You
think.
could train the physical part. You could train it into them. You could pump them up. You could do all kinds of things. And Bond's not a superhero either. He should be like lean. But that's another thing. Like Cavill's too cut. To play Bond almost. He looks like a superhero.
He's
I
like
don't
a,
know. We'll see.
but then again, this is Amazon. You might be like, well, Reacher really tests well, so
Well, people
uh,
do like those burly guys. So who knows?
yeah, I got to start watching season three.
I haven't watched a single episode of any of Reacher yet.
Dude, that show is so perfectly Chris Bumbre.
Yeah, I know. I should watch it at some point. I've been really watching a
I'll
lot
tell
of
you what, I will
it.
watch Cobra Kai finally if you start watching Reacher.
Sure, deal. I'll 100%. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, good, good. That's fair because I'm not going to go into this alone. I'm not going to
That
start
is
watching
fair.
Cobra
That
Kai
is
just for the
fair. A
sake of
journey. A journey.
it.
I don't know. I'm curious though. That would be crazy though. It's CinemaCon. God, the Daniel Craig thing has got me thinking.
You're talking me into wanting to go to CinemaCon
Could
now
you
because I
imagine
would
though?
I would love to be there for that moment and I could watch you have a heart attack
Could you
and then
imagine what the reaction would be though if Daniel Craig came out? It would be like, wow, the moment that you saw an actor completely fucking sell out like this after talking about how much he hates playing the role, doing nothing but bitching about it for the last decade, and then loyal to the Broccolis, gonna kill Bond off, and it's over. Could you imagine the moment where
the
somebody
director of the first movie is Luca Guadagnino. Hey, it's like
I would be I would be kind of
Daniel,
interested at that point though.
Daniel
That
Craig
would be
immediately backs out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I was reading he backed out of Sergeant Rock because he was pissed off about the reception to Queer, which makes me
Yeah.
think like, the guy's got thin skin. I mean, to me, Queer was received relatively well considering what kind of movie it was.
It was received well, but it didn't get any accolades, and he got none. So that I
It's
think that's I think that one thing when you say reaction, that's what he means.
not Luca Guadagnino's fault. I mean, it's the movie. It was very very niche, and
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
guarantee you none of the Oscar voters probably watched it. So I mean, come
no,
on,
they probably tuned out after 20 minutes. Really, they watched 20 minutes of it and they tuned out. It took me like multiple sittings to get through that movie.
I struggled through it. I was bored to tears for a lot of it. So
Yeah. I don't know though, man. The Bond, that would be the craziest thing if they announced the Daniel Craig though, and it would just be wow, man. The minute a man completely sold out.
And that's exactly why he won't do it, because I think
It would be
he
delicious to watch. It would be
knows he knows
delicious.
that kind of reaction he would get.
No, I bet Daniel Craig probably is like, now I could start hanging out with the Broccolis again because they'll stop asking me to come back
I
as
know,
Bond.
and she's still a producer. They can do other things. They don't have to do.
I mean, she's young. He's Michael G. Wilson's older. He's in his 80s, but she's
Yeah,
young. I mean, she just signed on to do. I think she has other things that she
she
wants to
does.
do.
She does. She produces other things.
Yeah, and
So
is very involved on Broadway and produced a play with Daniel Craig recently. So I imagine she has other things that she wants to do. And fair enough. I kind of I always hoped that, if she was going to move on at some point, they'd pass the baton on to someone else that they brought up, that they would have somebody like a steward, that they would always have some
yep,
kind of control over the series,
yep.
like she was, and that was the thing about her is that from the time she was born, she was like steeped in Bond knowledge. So she really knew the lore of the character. And she was involved from the time she was a teenager. I remember reading Octopussy. They got Rita Coolidge to sing the theme songs. That was her choice. She was like, "Oh, put her in." And even when it was. I just kind of wish that they still
Yeah,
had somebody with that kind of connection because I don't feel like the people, the bean counters at Amazon MGM, really care about the character. They want content. They want IP. They're doing their jobs. I don't blame them for anything that they're doing. It's going to make them a ton of money. I feel like it's going to get to the point though, inevitably in a couple of years where we're going to look back and we're going to be like, well, Bond is kind of over. It's like Star Trek and Star Wars now, where these things are just kind of they're making new content, but who do we really care about it? Like maybe, but then again, we're also older. Maybe a younger generation's going to enjoy it. Maybe they're going to make Bond for a new
it's going to
generation.
be like the brands you just mentioned. Like those things are popular, more popular than ever, but it's with like a dwindling fan base that's just
And
extremely.
do those people really care about like Star Wars or
Yes,
Star Trek like
those
the
no,
way
those
they
people, those
care
no,
about?
but that's the thing. Those are the people who watch it really care about Star Trek,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
like that's it. But like, I don't watch Star Trek anymore. Like, I don't give a
No,
shit. I don't know. I don't have any friends who do,
neither.
but there's like there's a core group of people that love it. It's almost like wrestling, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like we have a core group of people. Like we're the same people that have been watching it for like 30 years,
I
but
don't
but
I
it
don't
doesn't grow. It doesn't
I don't
grow.
really
You
I don't
know?
even really know anybody that watches Star Wars anymore. I mean, and I'm kind of getting there with Marvel almost. Like I haven't watched the last bunch of Marvel shows. It's just too much content for me, and I start to lose interest. I mean, that's the thing about Bond. It was always so easy to keep up with because there was a new movie every 3 years, and it was an event when one came out, and it's not going to be an event anymore.
Yeah,
Good or bad, even if the Bond movie was bad, I'd still go see it a couple times. Just to see what I could find in it. And then that's never going to happen anymore. It's just going to be disposable content. They're going to hire somebody. They're not going to go super young like I thought they were, like somebody in their 20s. They're going to go with somebody that's probably closer to our age, late 30s, early 40s, probably. And
yeah,
I really wouldn't be surprised at all if it was Cavill or somebody just very obvious.
yeah. All right. Well, you've got
Or
the news
multiple
here.
Bonds. They could say we've got multiple Bond movies. We're doing one with Idris Elba as Bond. We're doing another one with Pierce Brosnan as Bond, and we're doing another one with this new guy as Bond. Like they might do like what they do with Batman, where there's like
I mean,
multiple versions of Bond out there.
what I think they'll do. I mean, they'll probably announce a trilogy of Bond movies, and they'll announce that there'll be a series with a younger Bond and a
Mhm.
spin-off series with another character from the Bond universe. They'll announce a bunch of shit that some of it may or may not come to pass. Who knows? We'll see. That's how these things
Like
always
the
tend to work.
Arkham Asylum show that never
It's
happened.
like these things all. It's how these things always tend to work when they announce a movie along with like a companion series. Like the
I
series
mean, like
almost
great.
always.
Remember how many Greymans they were gonna make?
Yeah, remember how many the Dark Tower shows there were going to be like based
Did,
off that terrible Idris Elba Matthew McConaughey
did,
movie.
did you see though that they just announced an Extraction spinoff show with Omar Sy?
I don't want to see that, but okay.
Yeah, they just announced that today.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten Extractions 1 and 2.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah, do they need a spin-off series? That's the thing. Like, were they that good? You know, like they're
I
just
know,
kind of,
like, did they create such a rich universe that we need to have more?
oh my God, can you imagine they're for Bond, they're gonna do like the Chris Hemsworth version of Bond where he's gonna be just like an idiot and it's gonna be like a joke. It's gonna be like he's just gonna be a joke and he's gonna be a fool.
It could
They'll
be
do like
like first year Jack Ryan. Like he's just fresh. Like, oh, what I'm gonna do? How am I here in the field?
ugh, oh my God. Yeah. But spare me. I don't want that. I want Bond to be confident and in charge.
You don't want Bond like fumbling his gun as he goes out into the field for the first time and like, no, you can't be, you can't do that.
Bond Bond doesn't need to be relatable. That's the thing. I know I'm not James Bond. I don't need to watch something where I'm like, oh, I can relate to James Bond. I don't care. I know I'm not James Bond. I can't relate to Sean Connery. Like that's the thing. It's wish fulfillment, you know?
Yeah.
Perfect example of Bond wish fulfillment is if you watch Never Is Never Again when he was like in his 50s, he did the Rogue Bond movie, and he walks through like like a spa wearing like a sweatshirt, and all the women are looking at him and they're all like this like you know, and it's like, and he doesn't look that good. And then even Connery, they were like, somebody apparently, one of the writers came to him and said, "Hey, I mean, this is great. You're having a girl in the morning, you're having a girl in the afternoon, you're having a girl in the evening. Doesn't that prove something?" And he says, "It does. It proves that it's a movie." You know? Bond doesn't need to be realistic. Bond should be it's
Exactly.
wish fulfillment for people like me.
I think that's as good a place to end as any.
Yeah.
So you've heard it here. You got our opinions on this. What do you think about the future of James Bond? Hit me up. Where you hit me up on
They're
email
gonna
or
cast Tom
contact
Holland as James Bond. Watch, it's gonna be Tom Holland as James Bond.
Ah, shut up. All
Yeah.
right. Thanks, everybody. That is Chris Bumbray. You can find him at joeblow.com. I'm sure he'll be doing a lot of James Bond stuff. You still got the James Bond series that you're doing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm brainstorming ways to keep it going now. I want to, but it's one of those things. It's either going to
Don't
completely
don't worry.
throw.
Don't you worry. You're gonna have a bunch of James Bond content for you to do videos about very, very soon, my
I may
friend.
at some point though. That's the thing
So
that worries me though is that there's going to be James
don't you
Bond content
worry.
that I'm going to hate, and I'm going to be like,
Don't you worry. You're
I'm
not
just
gonna
going to
run
hate it.
out. You're not gonna run out. It's okay.
It's
Now
going to
I'm
be.
Travis Hobson. This has been Cinema Royale. You can find me every day at punchdrunkcritics.com. Thanks, everybody. I will see you again soon.
I'm gonna have to do the blow by blow of the Money Punny Chronicles, episode by episode.
Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.